Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the basic concept and an introduction to derivatives. The objectives of this lecture are to understand the concept and the meaning of the term derivatives, to know the evolution of the derivatives, to give a brief idea about the difference between cash and derivative market, to understand the need of derivatives, to discuss the importance of derivatives, to explain the different traders in the derivative markets, to discuss the types of derivative contracts and the difference between forward and future contracts, to state the advantages and disadvantages of derivatives. Now, what is a derivative? To understand the definition of derivative, firstly it is important to know the meaning of the terms assets and benchmark. An asset is a resource with economic value that an individual, corporation or country owns or controls with the expectation that it will provide a future benefit. Assets are reported on a company's balance sheet. They are classified as current, fixed, financial and intangible. Benchmarking is a process of measuring the performance of a company's products, services or processes against those of another business considered to be the best in the industry, that is best in class. Derivatives are one of the most complex instruments. The word derivative comes from the verb to derive. The term derivative refers to a type of financial contract whose value is dependent on an underlying asset, group of assets or benchmark. The commonly used assets are stocks, bonds, currencies, commodities and market indices. The value of the underlying assets keeps changing according to the market conditions. The basic principle behind entering into derivative contracts is to earn profits by speculating on the value of the underlying asset in future. Derivatives are very similar to insurance. Insurance protects against specific risks such as fire, floods and theft. Derivatives, on the other hand, take care of market risk volatility in interest rates, currency rates, commodity prices and share prices. Derivatives offer a sound mechanism for insuring against various kinds of risks arising in the world of finance. They offer a range of mechanisms to improve redistribution of risk, which can be extended to every product existing from coffee to cotton and live cattle to debt instruments. Therefore, derivatives are securities whose value is dependent on or derived from an underlying asset. For example, an oil futures contract is a type of derivative whose value is based on the market price of oil. Let us assume I am a farmer who is going to invest a fortune in sowing in my new farm. However, I have no idea what the price of my produce will be when I harvest. Prices of things constantly change and that is a risk for any businessman. If my tomatoes are sold at rupees 50 per kg, I might profit, while if it's sold at rupees 25 per kg when I harvest, I will be totally gutted. On the other hand, a soup producer sitting in the city is having the opposite risk. She has to worry about keeping the cost of inputs low. If the tomatoes get too expensive, her business might be shut down. What will we do to manage the risk? The soup maker and I will engage in a contract where we will agree to the price of tomatoes before it is even harvested. That way, I can be guaranteed of a customer at a certain price and the customer can be guaranteed a supplier. This is the foundation of the derivative markets. Derivatives help businesses manage risk. Without the ability to manage risk, many businesses will be thrown out by the market volatility. Let us take another example. Let's say Ben, a corn farmer, is worried that the price of corn will go down by the time his crop is ready for harvesting and wants to lock in the sale price at the current market price. On the other hand, Sam, a popcorn manufacturer, thinks that corn prices will go up in a few months and wants to lock his purchase price at the current market price. In this case, Ben and Sam enter into a forward contract, which is an agreement for Ben to sell and Sam to buy a fixed amount of corn at a future date, say 3 months from now at today's price. This way, they both hedge their risk based on their assessment of the future corn price. Now the question arises that how does derivative trading work and how can I invest in derivatives? Some derivatives are traded on exchanges just like stocks. These can be bought and sold through your regular brokerage account if you have enrolled for derivatives investment. But most derivatives are traded directly between two parties, usually financial institutions like banks, with the contract terms mutually agreed between the two parties. These are called over-the-counter or OTC derivatives. The Indian derivative market is one of the biggest markets in the world. The use of derivatives is indispensable when it comes to strategizing your trades well. It is mainly used as a tool for hedging, speculating and arbitraging. Now the evolution of derivatives. Although the formal setup of the derivative markets is relatively new since the 1970s, the general concept has existed around the world for years. Traders in Asian economies have observed and used the derivative instruments forward, future and options for their benefits and development processes. During the Renaissance, Venetian spice traders waited for cargo on the high seas for which they entered into future contracts agreeing to a price for future derivatives. Also, for hundreds of years, the Japanese rice farmers have used the future markets to secure the future value of their production. This was true in India with various commodities. Looking at the not distant history, options of various kinds called Teji and Mandi and Fatak in unorganized markets were traced as early in Mumbai. Though off the exchange, commodity-based derivatives have been in existence across the globe for ages. The way they are being structured and traded now is significantly different. Now the global derivatives markets. In less than 3 decades of their coming into trading, derivatives markets have become the most important markets in the world. Financial derivatives came into spotlight with the fall of Bretton Woods system of fixed exchange rates and gold convertibility system in 1970s. This generated enormous discomfort owing to currency fluctuations. To mitigate this risk, foreign currency derivatives were introduced on and over the counter. Growth in this area has come from the two directions, namely innovations in technology and financial economics. The first derivative on financial instruments was traced in 1972 on currencies in the international money market of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Since then, the growth in the derivatives markets has been phenomenal. Starting with currency futures in 1972 to stock options in 1973 to interest rate futures in 1975, the market has come a long way. Swaps, which started in 1981, account for $1 trillion business opportunity today at the international level. Today in the world markets, derivatives are being traded on anything and everything, including both tangibles and intangibles. The introduction of derivatives instruments like catastrophic bonds is an amazing invention. Securitization of any kind of receivables, including inventory, that is champagne bonds, to album royalties, Bonnie bonds, is a remarkable accomplishment of the industry. Tremendous amount of creativity and imagination is at work in these markets. Now the Indian derivatives markets. Starting from a controlled economy, India has moved towards a world where price fluctuates every day. The introduction of risk management instruments in India gained momentum in the last few years due to liberalization process and efforts of the Reserve Bank of India in creating currency forward market. Derivatives are an integral part of liberalization process to manage risk. The National Stock Exchange gauged the market requirements and initiated the process of setting up derivative markets in India. In 1996, the NSE submitted a proposal to the Securities Exchange Board of India for the introduction of derivatives. The Security Exchange Board of India constituted the L.C. Gupta Committee for policy formulation in the area of stock index futures. In 1998, the committee submitted its report approved by SEBI, following which in 1999 derivatives operations began in interest rate swaps and forward rate agreements. Now the difference between cash and derivative market. In cash market, we can purchase even one share, whereas in case of futures and options, the minimum lots are fixed. In cash market, tangible assets are traded, whereas in derivatives contracts, based on tangible or intangible assets are traded. Cash market is used for investment, derivatives are used for hedging, arbitrage or speculation. In case of cash market, a customer must open a trading and demat account, whereas for futures, a customer must open a future trading account with a derivative broker. In case of cash market, the entire amount is put upfront, whereas in case of futures, only the margin money needs to be put up. When an individual buys shares, he becomes part owner of the company, whereas the same does not happen in case of future contracts. In case of cash market, the owner of shares is entitled to the dividends, whereas the derivative holder is not entitled to dividends. Now the different traders in derivatives markets. There are 4 types of traders in the derivatives market. The first one is the hedger. A hedger is a position taken in order to offset the risk associated with some other position. A hedger is someone who faces risk associated with price movement of an asset and who uses derivatives as a means of reducing that risk. A hedger is a trader who enters the futures market to reduce a pre-existing risk. The classic example is the farmer who sells a futures contract to lock into a price for delivering a crop on a future date. The buyer might be a food processing company that wishes to fix a price for taking delivery of the crop in the future, or a speculator. Another typical case is that of a company due to receive a payment in a foreign currency on a future date. It enters into a forward contract to sell the foreign currency to a bank and receive a predetermined quantity of domestic currency, or it purchases an option which gives it the right but not the obligation to sell the foreign currency at a set rate. Now the speculator. While hedgers are interested in reducing or eliminating risk, speculators buy and sell derivatives to make profit and not to reduce risk. Speculators willingly take increased risks. Speculators wish to take position in the market by betting on the future price movements of an asset. Futures and options contracts can increase both the potential gains and losses in a speculative venture. Speculators are important to derivatives markets as they facilitate hedging, provide liquidity, ensure accurate pricing, and help to maintain price stability. It is the speculators who keep the market going because they bear risks which no one else is willing to bear. A classic case is a trader who believes that increasing demand or reduced supply is likely to boost the market price of oil. Since it would be too expensive to buy and store the physical commodity, the trader buys exchange-traded future contracts, agreeing to take delivery of oil on a future delivery date at a fixed price. If the oil price rises in the spot market, the value of the futures contracts will also rise and they can be sold back into the market as a profit. Now the third one is the arbitrator. An arbitrator is a person who simultaneously enters into transactions in two or more markets to take advantage of the discrepancy between prices in these markets. For example, if the future price of an asset is very high related to the cash price, an arbitrator will make profit by buying the asset and simultaneously selling futures. Now the margin traders. A margin refers to the minimum amount that you need to deposit with the broker to participate in the derivative market. It is used to reflect your losses and gains on a daily basis as per market movements. It enables to get leverage in derivative trades and maintain a large outstanding position. For example, with a sum of rupees 2 lakh, you buy 200 shares of ABC Limited of rupees 1000 each in the stock market. However, in the derivative market, you can own a 3 times bigger position, that is rupees 6 lakh with the same amount. A slight price change will lead to bigger gains or losses in the derivative market as compared to the stock market. Need for derivatives. To hedge, derivatives were originally created as tools for hedging. Businesses face a lot of risks related to commodity prices in their day-to-day operations. Hedging is the legitimate reason for the existence of derivatives. Hedging happens when the people buying or selling derivatives contract use the underlying asset in the day-to-day operations of the firm. Second most common reason behind the usage of derivatives is speculation. Speculators are necessary participants in any market as they provide liquidity. Speculators have no interest in the underlying asset and take part in the contract because they believe that they can make a gain out of the price movements. Since derivative contracts are extremely leveraged, speculation in the derivative market is a highly risky business. The third reason why derivatives are used in the marketplace is to circumvent regulation. Certain institutions like pension funds are prohibited from making investment in any kind of risky securities. Hence, derivatives help in superficially de-risking the securities and making it legal for the pension funds to purchase them. There are many such instances wherein derivatives have been used to circumvent regulations and change the very nature of the investment being made. The fourth one, minimizing trade costs. Investors all over the world do not like transaction costs. Derivatives provide a great way to avoid and evade them. Hence, derivatives are extremely useful financial instruments. This usefulness adds tremendously to their popularity and explains why every multinational corporation, major bank or investment bank in the world is highly involved in derivative trading. Now, what is the importance of derivatives? Derivative is best used as a risk management tool by which you can transfer the risk associated with the underlying asset to the party who is willing to take that risk. To simplify the risk term, it has been divided into 3 parts. The first one is the credit risk. Credit risk arises when any of the parties fail to fulfill the obligation under the agreement. Such an event is called a default. It is also known as default risk. Liquidity risk is financial risk that arises due to uncertain cash crunch. An institution might lose liquidity if its credit rating falls. It experiences sudden unexpected cash outflows or some other event causes counterparties to avoid trading with or lending to the institution. Market risk. Fluctuation in the prices of the underlying asset contributes to market risk. Market risk comprises of 4 factors: equity risk, interest rate risk, currency risk and commodity risk. In general, risk varies from sector to sector. For example, banks use derivatives to hedge against risks that may affect the operations and earnings, including interest rate risk, market risk, foreign exchange risk, and counterparty risk. Farmers use derivatives to lock the price of their crops in order to protect their harvest, so they are exposed to price risk. The importance of derivatives is increasing day by day because of high volatility in the market. Types of derivative contracts. The four major types of derivative contracts are options, forwards, futures, and swaps. Options are derivative contracts that give the buyer a right to buy or sell the underlying asset at the specified price during a certain period of time. The buyer is not under any obligation to exercise the option. The option seller is known as the option writer. The specified price is known as the strike price. Futures. Futures are standardized contracts that allow the holder to buy or sell the asset at an agreed price at the specified date. The parties to the future contracts are under an obligation to perform the contract. These contracts are traded on the stock exchange. The value of future contracts is market to market every day. It means that the contract value is adjusted according to market movements till the expiration date. Forwards. Forwards are like future contracts wherein the holder is under an obligation to perform the contract. But forwards are unstandardized and not traded on stock exchanges. These are available over the counter and are not market to market. These can be customized to suit the requirements of the parties to the contract. Swaps. Swaps are derivative contracts wherein two parties exchange their financial obligations. The cash flows are based on a notional principal amount agreed between both parties without exchange of principal. The amount of cash flows is based on a rate of interest. One cash flow is generally fixed and the other changes on the basis of a benchmark interest rate. Interest rate swaps are the most commonly used category. Swaps are not traded on stock exchanges and are over-the-counter contracts between businesses or financial institutions. Swaptions. Swaptions are options on swaps. It is an option that entitles the holder the right to enter into or cancel a swap at a future date. Swaptions become operative at the expiry of the options. Difference between forward and future contracts. Forward contracts are traded on personal basis while future contracts are traded in a competitive arena. Forward contracts are traded over the counter whereas futures are exchange traded. Forward contract settlement takes place on the date agreed upon between the parties, whereas futures contract settlements are made daily. Cost of forward contract is based on bid-ask spread, whereas futures contracts have brokerage fees for buy and sell order. In case of forwards, they are not subject to marking to market. On the other hand, futures are mark to market. Margins are not required in case of forward market, whereas in futures, margin is required. In a forward contract, credit risk is borne by each party, whereas in case of futures, the transaction is a two-way transaction. Hence, both the parties need not bother about the risk. Now, the advantages and disadvantages of derivatives. Advantages. Derivatives can be a useful tool for businesses and investors alike. They provide a way to lock in prices, hedge against unfavorable movements in rates, and mitigate risks. These pluses can often come for a limited cost. Derivatives also can often be purchased on margin, which means traders use borrowed funds to purchase them. This makes them even less expensive. Disadvantages. Derivatives are difficult to value because they are based on the price of another asset. Most derivatives are also sensitive to changes in the amount of time to expiration, the cost of holding the underlying asset, and interest rates. These variables make it difficult to perfectly match the value of a derivative with the underlying asset. Because the derivative has no intrinsic value, its value comes only from the underlying asset. It is vulnerable to market sentiment and market risk. It is possible for supply and demand factors to cause a derivative's price and its liquidity to rise and fall, regardless of what is happening with the price of the underlying asset. So, that was all about the introduction of derivatives. Hope you have understood this lecture. Thank you for watching. Stay blessed.